Hi, and welcome to Origin of Concepts. In this video, we will explore the origin of the inspiration source to create the famous Yggdrasil tree from Norse mythology. This video will be a little longer than normal because I cover everything in the tree, including the origin of the animals, the roots and the wells, and so on. I'll comment and draw on the run, so let's start. Yggdrasil in Norse mythology is a sacred ash tree, the world tree, that acts as the central structure of the cosmos, connecting the 9 worlds, including Asgard, Midgard, and Niflheim. It symbolizes life, death, and resilience, holding the universe together while acting as a bridge between realms. And of course, the tree can be found in the Milky Way center. Otherwise, I will not be here. So let's take a look at the Milky Way center here in a second. So here we got it. Let's start with the world tree, the great ash tree. The Yggdrasil tree is formed by the shadows surrounding the center of the Milky Way. It's split up to a left side here and a right side here, and then it got a trunk, which is the striped shadow here. This is always the tree in all the myths. And of course the crown is formed by the 2 shadows on each side of the disk here. The disk is always, the disk light in the center of the Milky Way is always the central point of all the stories. And there's a reason why it is an ash tree. And let me explain. Ash is related to the ash-colored part of the Milky Way center, the silvery shadow over here. And this is the ash from the burning and the ash color. And that's basically why ash trees here in the northern part of the world is named ash trees, because they are named after the tree in the Milky Way. So now you know that. The ash Yggdrasil suffers as it rots on its side. Let's take a look at the rotten part of the tree, because we got the tree here, and if you look at the silvery part here, that's the rotten part of the tree. You know, it's white and ashy and it's not very healthy anymore. So this is the part of the tree that is rotting. And then we got the bridge inside the tree, or up to the tree, or how you want to define it. The Bifrost rainbow bridge. And Bifrost is the glittering rainbow bridge connecting the mortal and the spirit worlds, of course, which is the striped shadow here. This is the bow of rain in the Milky Way center. You can watch my Bifrost video to get into more details. And then let's move on, because we have to go through the etymology, the meaning of the word Yggdrasil, which means Ygg's horse or Odin's horse. Odin got a horse named Sleipnir, which got 8 legs, which is formed by the shadows surrounding the Milky Way center here. And this is the head, so to speak, maybe the eye here. And then the striped shadow here is the 8 legs of Sleipnir. So here you got Yggdrasil, Odin's 8-legged horse. And let me see what else we got here. Yeah, and Yggdrasil and the tree is of course one and the same thing. It could be a tree or it can be an 8-legged horse. So there you got it. Okay, then let's go through the 9 worlds. I won't go into details of all 9 worlds, but I'll tell you about the concept of the 9 worlds. Because there's 9 worlds in the tree. The 9 worlds is visualized by the 9 dark stripes in the striped shadows. So here you got the 9 worlds in the tree. And this is, by the way, the same as the 9 bows in ancient Egypt mythology. Just to make a comparison between 2 completely different worlds, who never met each other. Each individual world is described by the same aspects in the Milky Way center. And let me explain what I mean. For example, let's take, this is the Asgard, for example. Asgard is explained by using all the shadows here in this area. And the same for each world. So the Milky Way center is used to describe all the worlds individually. It took me years to figure that out because I was looking for 9 worlds, and God. But that's the reason. And I'll get into the individual worlds in another video. Otherwise, this video will be forever. Okay, let's talk about the animals living in the tree. And let's start with resvelger, which means corpse eater. The corpse eater. The entity eating corpses. Resvelger is a giant Jotun, visualized by the Milky Way center, which is also a big mouth. So this is the mouth of Resvelger. Let me draw it here, the great mouth. Just follow the outlines of the shadows here. Here we got Resvelger. And he's eating corpses. And first of all, he sits on the highest place in the north, at the very end of the heaven. And the heaven is the area in here, the blue spot. This is always the heaven of the realm in the Milky Way center. And the corpses he's eating is, of course, the striped shadow here. The stripes represent the corpses of dead people. So he's eating the corpses, the corpse swallower. And then he is described like he is covered in eagle skin. In our term up here in the north, it's ham. But skin is the best alternative term. And this is, of course, the silvery shadow here. And there's a very good reason why that's the eagle skin. Because it is, the silvery shadow is the eagle. And let me try to draw it. Here we got his beak, and here we got head, and then I'll just make something for the picture here. Here we got the eagle. And here we got the eagle eye, of course. So here we got the eagle. He sits right there. This is also a Horus from Egypt mythology, the falcon. And this is, of course, the skin for the corpse swallower. I think you get it now. And the last thing is the corpse swallower he creates the winds and the storms when he take off with his giant wings. And this is, of course, his giant wings here. And this is the storm. The striped shadow here is the storm he creates with the wings. The striped shadow is always playing the role as high waters, wild waters, roar, sound, wind, rain, and all that kind of stuff. And there's no difference in Nordic or Norse mythology. And then it's very important to notice that Resveljer, the corpse swallower, is not necessarily the unnamed eagle. So don't confuse him with the eagle of the Eddas, of the Edda texts, because then you will get very confused. I talk of experience. But let's talk about the unnamed eagle, because that's hard to find. And the reason why I found him is because this eagle is also in existence in other myths. So let me explain here. The eagle head is the dark shadow surrounding the Milky Way center. So the unnamed eagle is the eagle head. And let me try if I can draw it here. Because let me see, where do I start? Okay, the eye is the disc here. And then we got like the top of the eye here, and the beak is here. And then we got we could make this his back and his wings here. That will be the best way to draw him. But that's the unnamed eagle here. And then he sits atop of the Yggdrasil tree. And then let me make something very interesting here. I'll remove this wing, because between his eyes, or on his beak, we got Hverfolnir, which is the hawk. You know, a hawk is sitting between his eyes or on his beak. And Hverfolnir means the storm-paled bird, or the storm-paled hawk. And now I'll draw the hawk once again, because he's standing here. Right on the beak. There you got it. The small bird on the between the eyes of the big unnamed eagle. It only took a couple of years to figure that out. But here you got it. And there's no other ways around. That's what's they talking about in the prose Eddas and Snorri's Eddas. And let me see what else I got on this. Yeah, the eagle is in constant conflict with the serpent Nidhogg um, at the roots of the tree. And then the eagle knows many things, of course, because he is the spirit bird. You know, he knows this is wisdom, the spirit inside the golden disk in the Milky Way center. So he's very wise, knows many things, as it is written. And again, I have to point out that the unnamed eagle is not necessary the corpse swallower, Hresvelja. So don't mix those two together, because many people interpret the text in the Eddas, confuse those two aspects. So if you don't do that, it will be much easier to understand the Norse mythology. Okay, then let's move on to the hawk, Hverfölnir, or the storm-paled hawk. And let me see if I can remove all this. I will. Yes, the name Vidfalner means storm pale. You know, a bird sitting in a tree and is white because the storm has, removed all his color and he looks like a, yeah. And I'll draw him because he is here. Of course, the same hawk as I just right. And here we got his legs and his chest and the eyes here. So here we got the hawk, Vidfalner, the storm-paled. And the reason why he's storm-paled is, of course, because of the color of the storm-paled silvery shadow, the rotten part of the Yggdrasil tree. And yeah, and this is also Horus the falcon from Egypt mythology, by the way. And let me read some of the text regarding the hawk. The hawk is sitting at the highest branch in the Yggdrasil tree. And the highest branch is, of course, the striped shadow. It's the only branch in the tree, by the way. The hawk is an observer of the 9 worlds. And you already know that the striped shadow is the 9 worlds. So I don't have to draw them again. And the hawk dropping pieces of wood towards the world below, hoping to strike the serpent Nidhogg, the serpent, at the roots of the tree. So here you got all the pieces of wood. He's dropping like bombs to hit the serpent. And that's the end of that chat. Okay, let's move on to the 4 stags also living in the tree. And the 4 stags is named Dane, Dvalin, Dunur, and Duratro. And let me first show you the crown of the tree, because they are standing in the tree crown. And you must read this very literally, because the crown is the striped shadow. It is always, when you hear the name crown, this is the crown. And then we have to look for the 4 stags. Actually, it's only the head of the 4 stags. It's not the full body. And they are here. Because the striped shadow is like split up into 4 parts. Like one here, one here, one here, and one here. I'll make them like a H. And this is the 4 stacks here in the crown of the tree. And let me make an example. This is always the most used shadow to describe things in the stripes, because it got 2 eyes here. So I think it's the main source of inspiration to make it to all the animals. So here you got the 4 stacks. And by the way, the striped shadow here is always, the bunch of animals, or the, pulling the chariot or whatever, the guarding dogs, or all kind of animals. And in this concept, it's the stacks. Okay, let's move on to another guy here, and let me see if I can speak the word, because his name is Yggdrasil, which means oak thorny, and it means the thorn of the oak, the thorn of the tree. This is also a stack, but not one of the 4 stacks in the top of the tree. He's standing on the very top of the tree, atop Valhalla, the hall of Odin, and he is feeding on the branches of the tree. Lera is the name of the tree he is feeding on, which is the same as the Yggdrasil tree. It's just in the Valhalla myth, but I bring it here just to show you. And of course, this stack is the dark shadow left on the disc, leaning over the disc. So here we got his head. It's something like this. And then he got like, this shadow always has like 2 horns up there. And little eye here, the star. So here you got the oak thorny, or the thorned oak. Okay. And what is he doing here? Yeah. His horn is dripping a mysterious fluid into the well Yggdrasil. Okay, so let's take a look at what's dropping from his horns. The mysterious fluid dripping from his horn is visualized by the dark, thin shadow on top of the disc. So let's start drawing the well Yggdrasil, because it's the disc here. This is all the wells. I'll come back to that later. And then let's find the mysterious fluid dripping from him into this well. And this is, of course, this black shadow running down here. Or wait, I'll do it in another way. It's dripping. So, there you got it. And the mysterious fluid, I guess it's spirit, is dripping into this well. And the well, becomes the spring, and become all the rivers below it. And of course, all those rivers is the striped shadow here. The 9 or 11, can't remember it, rivers in the land of Yggdrasil. So here you see the disc light is created from nothing. And then it manifests in the golden disc in the Milky Way center, and then it runs through the striped shadow and into wisdom, into human mind. Okay. I think that was all of the oak thorny Eichhörnir. Let's move on to Ratatosk. Ratatosk is a little red squirrel. In up here, it's named Ean, and he got it Ratatosk means drill tooth. You know, he got a drilling tooth in front of him. The little squirrel, Ratatosk, the drill tooth, runs up and down the trunk with information from the eagle at the top to the snake Nidhogg among the roots. Okay. And I'll find my color here. The head of the squirrel is the dark head in the striped shadow, that with the red eyes. He doesn't got red eyes. But this is the little squirrel guy here. Again. And he got his eyes. So here he is. And the trunk he's running up and down is, of course, the trunk of the tree, the striped shadow here. Let me see here. His name, Drill Tooth, is a reference to the striped shadow, which is the coiled drill, or the coiled serpent in many other myths. Everything that's twisted, in the myth is always the striped shadow. And we could do like this. And this is his tooth, his name. Okay, let me see here. Yeah, very important. The striped shadow is also the teeth of the Milky Way center. And drill, tooth, teeth. Everything in Norse mythology related to teeth or tooth is the striped shadow. And the striped shadow always plays the role as the messenger or messengers or messenger characters in basically every myth around the world. The path between the mortal and spirit worlds. The bridge between the mortal and the spirit. Spirit inside. Golden light from the disc inside here. Okay. Let's move on to Nidhogg, the serpent, eating the roots of the tree. Nidhogg dwells in Niflheim, in the Hvergelmir well. And let's start with the well, because this is always the well. And Nidhogg is, of course, the striped shadow here. And let me put a marker here, because when you read the texts in the Edda, Nidhogg is more like a phenomenon instead of just one entity. He's like a realm or place for evil minds or, bad thoughts or something like that, or people who have done bad things. Because it's also mentioned as Nidhogg is also mentioned as a lot of worms. So you can read the text and decide for yourself. But no matter what, when we talk about the worms or the Nidhogg, it's the striped shadow. And Niflheim, where he lives, is of course the icy shadow here, the foggy shadow. the white silvery shadow, yeah. So here you got the well, and you got the Nidhogg here, and you got Niflheim here. Let's read up from the text what Nidhogg does and doesn't. Nidhogg is gnawing at one of the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil. The roots of the tree is those three shadows here. And Nidhogg is eating of this root, which is himself, of course. And then Nidhogg sucks the dead bodies. And you know, the stripes in the stripe shadow here also represent the dead bodies in heaven. Or, you know, those dead bodies is not really go to heaven yet. They are just at the entrance and here like feeding on them because they are bad people. Okay. And next. Yeah, here comes what I'm talking about before, because it reads in the text, at Nidhogg in Vergelmir, there are so many snakes that no tongue can count them. So here we got the Nidhogg as like all-around aspect for bad things, and not, you know, a serpent or an entity, because there are so many snakes. And of course, the many snakes is visualized by the stripe shadow again here. This is all the snakes. And by the way, I have to put here. And by the way, if the people in the north has known about cobras, you know, they will have discovered the cobra sitting here, which is used as the snakes in basically every single myth in the world. The cobra sitting here, the seven-headed cobra. So this is also serpents and snakes in all other mythologies around the world. But they didn't, because they didn't know cobras in the north. Maybe something called hogorm, you know, zig serpent. Okay, this is the many snakes here. Let me draw them again. And there is so many that no tongue can count them. And you know what? The stripe shadow is also the tongue. And let me draw it for you here. I'll make like this, you know, this is always on the tongue, because it's the tongue of the big mouth in the Milky Way center. So here you got the tongue. And this is also the tongue in every other myths around the world. They also saw this tongue in heaven. Okay, there comes the dark dragon flying, the shining one from below Nidefjelle. Let me explain that. The shining dragon is the disc light emanating from the disc and running down through the stripe shadow. So every time we got something shiny, it's the disc here. And the light, golden light from the disc, is emanating down through the stripe shadow here and make it the shining dragon. And dragon is the serpent. It's Nidhogg. Nidefjelle means the lower valley. the valleys below the disc, of course. Is the area surrounding the is this area. This area is always the field or the valley between the two mountains, and so on and so forth. So here you got the Nidefjelle, the lower valley. Okay, Nidhogg flies over the plain, dragging corpses in his feathers. Okay, so now the serpent is flying over the plain. Let's visualize that here. This is the plain. Oh, sorry. This is the plain, this area. And Nidhogg is flying over it. I'll give him a serpent head here. Psst. And in his feathers, he wears the dead bodies, the stripes and the stripe shadow. So, end of that chapter. And Nidhogg dwells in Nastrand, the shore of corpses, and gnaws or eating on the corpses of the wicked. Okay, let's start making the shore, because the shore here is the disc, the sand on the shore. And the corpses lying on the shore, you already know, is the striped shadow. And of course, he gnaws of them, eating them. Okay, I think that's all for Nidhogg. Then let's move on to the 3 roots and the 3 wells associated with the roots. And that was a heavy one to figure out. Maybe 10 years. So I look forward to pass it on to you now here. Okay, the 3 roots and wells. Yggdrasil is anchored by 3 enormous roots that extend to different places in the cosmos. Each root is connected to a well or a source. Let's start making the roots here, because the 3 roots is the 3 dark shadows surrounding the Milky Way center. So here we got 1 root, and this is the next root, and here we got the 3rd root. If you look at the Milky Way as it is here, there's only 3 dark shadows, and that's the 3 roots. The first root reach into Asgard and Urt's well, Earth's well. And let us try to depict that. The root here leading to Asgard is the silvery shadow here. And the god, it leads to the root extends into heaven, into the home of the Aesir gods. Just the gods. It leads to the gods. And the gods, of course, is depicted here by the striped shadow. This is all the gods sitting up there in the Valhalla, or in the Yggdrasil tree in Asgard. Ash garden. Yeah. And and then we got Earth's well, the well of Earth, which is the holiest of the wells, where the gods hold their daily governing council. And of course, Earth, the well, Earth, is the disk in the Milky Way center. And the gods at the governing council is, of course, the striped shadow here. This is the council, where they figure out how to run the world of the heavens. Okay. And then 3 Norns weaves the threads of fate for all beings. So up there we got 3 Norns is the name. And let me draw them for you. Because it's again these 3 combined shadows here. Sitting here. 3 entities named Norns. And they weaves the threads of fate. And the weaves is, of course, here is the shadow. And the weaves is of course, the striped shadow here. It's all the textiles, They are weaving a net. And this is also weaving a net or a spider web in other myths. It's also the striped shadow here. Okay. And the 3 Norns pour water and white mud from the well over the root daily to keep the tree from rotting. Aha, okay. So these 3 entities here, I'll just make them as circles, are pouring water onto the tree and white mud. The white mud is, of course, the muddy white area here. And the water is the striped shadow, of course, yeah. So they are pouring water and white mud between the stripes on the tree so it doesn't rotten. You remember the shadow here is the rotten part of Yggdrasil. Okay, I think you got it. And if I remove, you can see it's the rotten part of the entire tree. Imagine the entities down there putting mud and water to stop the rotting process. Okay, then let's go to root number 2, which is which end up in Jotunheim, where we find Mimir's well. The root extends to the realm of the Jotnar, the frost giants, at Ginnungagap, the gaping empty throat. It means the Ginnungagap means the gaping throat, or the sea of creation. It's from the creation story. The root is the dark shadow left to the disk, leaning up above the disk. So here we got the next root. Here. This shadow. And Mimir's well, or Mimir's well, is of course the disk again. Because the disk, it's reused. And the frost, or the name for it up here in the north, is Rim. It's frost, but it's more on the state right before it's frozen. And this, let me see here, and this frost and the gaping throat of the mouth is both the frosty area here above the disc. And in a moment you'll know why. Let me give me a second here. Yeah. And let me explain the gaping throat. Because as I showed you before, this is the frosty area. And as you know, this is the mouth in the Milky Way. And something is coming out here. So here you got the throat in the mouth. So simply as that. And by the way, this is not only in Norse mythology, it's a lot of other myths worldwide. They see the throat of the mouth up there. God speak, for example. Okay. The giant Mimir guards the well, and he drinks from it every morning with the Gjallarhorn, with his horn. And the Milky Way center is the giant mouth here, of course. Drinking. You see the drinking mouth? You know, now it's not coming out, but it's coming into the mouth. So he's pouring into the mouth now. And then we got the Gjallarhorn. And the great horn in the Milky Way center, you know, this is the horn is like the striped shadow here. This is the horn. And then he's drinking of the horn. Yeah. The horned shadow, I wrote here. The Milky Way center is the giant mouth of Mimir, which drinks of the striped horned shadow. Yeah. I think you get it. And then the last aspect of the Mimir's well is the famous story about Odin sacrificing his one eye in exchange for a single drink of Mimir's well to gain hidden knowledge. And Odin's eye is of course visualized by the dark shadows surrounding the Milky Way center. Let me draw it, because this is of course the eye, yeah, here. This is the eye of Odin plumbed into the well. So that's the reason he only got one eye, because the other one is here. Or vice versa. You decide. This is, by the way, also the eye of Horus in Egypt. Just to draw, similarities, so that people saw similar things different places in the world, and now you will also see it. So let me move on here, because if we do like this, and use the shadow down here, then you got the eye of Horus in Egypt. Okay, but in this case it is the eye of Odin. Then let's move on to the third route, which leads to Niflheim and Hvergelmir's well. The route reaches down into the primordial, foggy realm of Niflheim. And it's the striped shadow here, moving into Niflheim. And let me see here. The root is of course the striped shadow. And Niflheim is the let me get my color. The foggy white area here. The Vagelmir well means the roaring or bubbling kettle, is the fountain that creates the 11 rivers Elvavagar. And then again we got Vagelmir here is the well, and the water fountain is the striped shadow here, which is also the 11 rivers, as we spoke before in the Yggdrasil. So here you got the origin of that text. And then, of course, in the bottom of the root, or Nidhogg gnaws the root from below, and he is, of course, lying here in the striped shadow too. So that was all about the 3 roots and the 3 wells. And then there's a little about Yggdrasil and Ragnarok. And basically, there's no in the Edda texts, there is no direct speak about Yggdrasil and the Ragnarok. The only text is like the tree was shaking and roars violently, and then some of the people trying to interpret it combines a lot of things, but I'll keep it very straight here because the tree is staying after the Ragnarok, but it is shaking and roaring, rah. And let me try to illustrate that here. First of all, the tree shaking and roars violently, and the striped shadow here is, of course, the roaring, the sound coming out of the great mouth, the sound wave, so to speak. And it's also the shaking, the earthquake coming in the mountain or in the heaven or wherever you like. So it's both. And then there is a fire related to the tree. And I can, but as long story short, the fire is, of course, the golden shiny disk in the center of the Milky Way, running through the striped shadow, and makes puts fire to the trees, because the striped shadows here is also the trees. When the golden light emerging through the striped shadow, it looks like fire in the bush. Maybe you have read Moses and the burning bush. Same concept. Okay. And to end everything about the Yggdrasil world tree, we must not forget the Midgard serpent. So let's find the Midgard serpent here. What colors do we like him? We'll make him green. The Midgard serpent lies in the world ocean and surrounds Midgard, the world of humans. And which is located in the center of the structure of Yggdrasil. The Midgard serpent bites his own tail. Okay, let's start to point out Midgard. This is Midgard, in the middle of the tree. The guard. Guard, is also like in Nordic language, like Danish. It's like you got 4 houses, and in between you got the gårdsplads, the guard, the free space between the houses, where you can sow some grass or make some tiles or whatever, make a little spring water in the center. So this is the Midgard, the garden in the middle. And the people living in it is, of course, the human here in the striped shadow. And then the Midgard serpent lives in the ocean surrounding the world, which is, of course, the blue area up here. And then we have to draw the Midgard serpent biting his own tail. I'll clean the board. I'll make it rough because here you got his mouth, so to speak, and his head up here. And then it's supposed to be like, this is his the back part, and he's like a twisted serpent. I don't know how to do it, but let's try to do something. And here we got his tail. Yeah. And he's like grabbing his, like this. He's grabbing his own tail. Because the dark shadow up here, this is the tail. And here you got the mouth of the dragon. You could also do like this. Maybe it will be better to do like this. So, and then it will be like this. And we could do like this. And here is I think you get the point. So it's not the entire Milky Way around the Earth. It's just the dark shadows surrounding the golden disk in the Milky Way center. And specific this blue area up here. Because that's the sea he's living in. Okay, now you know where to find the Midgard serpent. And I think there's no more about that. No, that's it. Now you know where to find the Yggdrasil, the world tree from Norse mythology. And if you like me to go deeper into some details in Norse mythology, please comment below. And then I only have to say thanks for watching. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope you learned something today, or maybe it can take you further into your own investigation of Norse mythology, because this is the only place on the entire internet you will get this story. So that's a new angle on it. Okay, until next video, take care. Bye.